I'd like to say a special welcome to everyone. It's great to see you on Zoom today. I'm Dan Lambert, and I serve this congregation as minister. Our progressive, welcoming, inclusive, and judgment-free congregation is a liberal religious community of diverse and free-thinking individuals. UUFCC is a spiritual community where reason and social justice matter. As people who learn, love, share, and serve together, we welcome all into our family. We begin our service each week by singing an invitation to gather together, even as we are scattered in many different places at this time. So let's sing Enter, Rejoice, and Zoom in. That was Jerry and Alan Searle doing that song for us, and I think they're somewhere out on the West Coast. In fact, I thought I heard Jerry's voice earlier when we were getting ready. So, hey, Jerry and Alan, great to see you. Thanks for contributing that song for us to sing this month as we start our service. Lori Douglas is our worship associate for today, and she has words for chalice lighting.
Good morning. Our chalice lighting today comes from, the words come from author Erica Hewitt, plus a few adaptions, and a little help from Ginger. Here we go. The word courage comes from the Latin cor, which means heart. According to poet Mark Nepo, the original use of the word courage meant to stand by one's core, a striking concept that reinforces the belief found in almost all traditions that living from the center is what enables us to face whatever life has to offer.
To encourage means to hearten, to impart strength and confidence. This is our work as a religious community to encourage one another, to be bold in engaging the world around us, as well as what scares us internally, to give one another the confidence and heart to live as fully as possible.
With full hearts, we affirm our relationships with one another. We recognize our agency and our connective power, and we accept our responsibility to be bold and courageous. We light this chalice in memory and with gratitude for the life of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We light this chalice, symbol of all that we are, all that we have done together, and all that we will be as our shared ministry encourages those within and beyond our walls. Thank you.
All right, again, I forgot to unmute myself. So recite with me the affirmation as we light the chalice. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and love, and to help one another. And now I'll give you a moment at home to light your own chalice. Lori has opening words for us at this time.
Our opening words are from Susan McGinn, who is a UU minister serving the Navy Chaplain Corps. From beyond the playful summer clouds, beyond the earth's thin blue line from beyond the bright moon and meteor showers. We hear the call to look and listen carefully, to turn away from a world that buys and sells happiness, to fully experience the luring whisper of your heart's truth. Why not today? Why not now? We are here together, at home and in this evolving place, home in this ever-changing breath and body, home in this dewy morning as it reaches toward a high, hot noon. We hear the call from far beyond and deep within, and we do not hear it alone. Come, let us worship together.
Thank you, Lori. I'd like to say a special welcome today to any of new visitors we have. Sometimes it's difficult in Zoom to know who's new with us, who's popping in to say hello. And I think we have a couple of new folks who are joining us today from what I understand. So we invite you, if you're a visitor with us or if you're new, to share in the chat room. Just if you don't mind, share your name, where you're from, and maybe why you decided to join us today. That would be really terrific so that we can all then say hi. And we do invite you to stick around after the service as well and be part of our social hour, where you'll go into a break room and meet maybe 5, 6, or 7 other people who will greet you and learn about you, and you can learn more about us during that time. So if you're new, please take the next few minutes and just say a little bit about yourself in the chat room. Our hymn this morning is "We Would Be One." It's one of our favorite hymns, one that we haven't done in a while, and this particular version comes to us from Church of the Larger Fellowship, which is a Unitarian Universalist online fellowship which has met for a very long time. And of course, they've become really popular now that we're all meeting virtually, and very few of our congregations are meeting in person. But they have their service, I believe it's every Sunday night at 8 p.m. that you can follow on YouTube, on Facebook, and other channels. So this is "We Would Be One" from Church of the Larger Fellowship. Please sing along at home. So nice. Thank you all for joining in that. At this time, it's time for our member spotlight, and this week we're going to learn more about Linda Himes. And I know that many of us have known Linda for quite a long time, but there's probably a lot you don't know about Linda. So let's see what she has to share.
Hi, I'm Linda Himes. I started coming to the UUFCC in 2018 to sing in the choir. After I met Jim Boyle in a recorder group that we both play in, we got started on the subject of singing, and he invited me to come sing with the choir. My first question was, where is this choir? I don't do religion. The UU was Jim's response. He said, I can do that. That's not really religion. After spending about a year here singing, joining the women's group and becoming a worship associate, I learned enough about what being a UU was all about, and I signed the book. I was on the ministerial search task force and needed a title, so I made myself the assistant to the music director, which means I help with the music library and send out messages and things like that. And now with the pandemic, my role has become a little broader, and I make music videos and put together the hymns that the choir members sing at their own home into their phone. But why I don't do religion? Well, primarily because my journey through religion reaffirmed my beliefs as an atheist. I was born in Buffalo, grew up in the city in North Tonawanda, which is at the western terminus of the Erie Canal, and where it intersects with the Niagara River. 10 miles upstream from Niagara Falls and 6 miles from the Love Canal. If any of you remember Love Canal, you know that's a disaster. I was baptized in an ELCA Lutheran church. My mother required the family to attend church on Easter and Mother's Day. So those 2 days a year, we'd go to church. And her birthday, if it fell on a Sunday or a Saturday. My father and her apparently had a non-disclosure agreement, which is so popular now. He never told me that he was a nun until 5 days before his passing from terminal lung cancer. Basically, on his deathbed, he told me people believe in God because they needed to, or they'd go crazy. And that's a whole nother conversation altogether. So I grew up in a semi-secular home. Eventually, my mother thought it was a good idea if we joined the local church, the church near our house, so we could go to confirmation class, my brother and I. I agreed to confirmation because I knew it meant I would get a new bicycle, which would be like a woman-sized bicycle. Every week, we'd get Bible verses assigned and to study during the week. Well, I would study mine in the car on the way from school to the class. So I didn't do so good at memorizing those Bible verses. And one of the things that we had to do for confirmation was on examination Sunday, we had to read an essay that we wrote. Well, the first 2 drafts I wrote were rejected by the pastor. So finally I wrote a third one, and he edited it very strongly, and that's what I read on that Sunday. So I wasn't so good at religion. I became a clinical laboratory scientist in 1985, started my career in a hospital setting, moved on into research at the University of Buffalo. In 1990, I met my husband, who was a graduate student there, but we met through an ad in the local penny saver. That was before the internet. Got engaged and had to meet with the pastor of the church, which was a different one than the one I got confirmed with. But we had to meet with him before he would perform our wedding. One of our conversations, we said we wanted to edit the vows to remove the line about accepting children as a gift from God. He said, because we knew we didn't want kids. He said, why are you getting married if you don't want kids? Like, because we don't want to live in sin, I guess. Through our conversations with him, we discovered we had common interests in boats and diesel. We took him out on the Erie Canal in our 1967 Chris Craft cabin cruiser. And Frank and him started spending time tinkering with diesel VW rabbits. And so Frank referred to Norv as his diesel mechanic and spiritual advisor. We left Buffalo, started moving south. We ended up in the Elmira, Binghamton area of New York. We didn't pursue any church or religion. And then we moved on to Baltimore, where I worked in open heart surgery at Union Memorial and in HIV research at Johns Hopkins. Frank was an ICU nurse. One day in 1997, I was home recovering from surgery when there came a knock at the door. And don't worry, it wasn't the JWs. It was the Mormons, almost as bad. I was still searching for God, so I let them dunk me for a full immersion baptism. That was weird. Frank didn't come along, but he tolerated it. When I learned that I had to wear magic underwear and a matronly dress to get sealed for eternity to a man in the temple, but not my husband, I said, you know, it's time to move on. Not long after that, we moved to Florida, Port Charlotte, in 2001. I worked, we sailed, I worked. I got a horse, I rode my horse, I fell off my horse and sustained a traumatic brain injury, resulting in my inability to return to work in 2015. Once again, I'm still here at the UU. We remained in contact with Norb, the pastor that married us, Norb Fulbachny, over the last 30 years. And we meet up with him every few years. And Frank has told him that we're atheists. And he said, no, you're not my congregants. You're my friend. So it doesn't matter. I told him I was now a UU. And he asked me, he said, what is it with UUs? I've lost so many folks from my church to them. But Norb and I had conversations about faith and all that kind of stuff. And I told him I never thought we were saved by faith. How can you be saved by just believing in something? But rather, we are saved by our works. And now I mean, I don't believe in being saved, but I do believe in that our works are what matters in life. And I think that's why I'm comfortable as a UU, because it's what we're all about. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Linda. It's fantastic to learn more about you, and it's also always fascinating that we have so many people who were told that they don't do religion right, that they're confused about religion or about faith, and that's who we all are as UUs. So if you're confused, if you aren't doing religion right, if you're a heretic or have been told that you don't understand religion, this is a perfect place for you, and it's part of why I'm here for sure. Now we enter the time where we share in what we call the Book of Life, which is a place for us to, in writing, if you'd like to, share a little bit about what's happening in your life, a joy or concern, something to celebrate or a sorrow. And we invite you to do that in the chat room again of Zoom. You can share whatever you'd like that you would like for the community to know, so that you can be encouraged, you can be uplifted, you can be supported. We can share in your joys and celebrate with you, or we can give you a virtual hug and mourn with you, as the case may be. As Lori mentioned before, Friday we were all saddened to learn about the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She is a person worth emulating. She's a person worth mourning. She's a person worth celebrating. Even if she had never been a Supreme Court justice, the work she did for women's rights would have made her a legend. Excuse me. There are a lot of things written about her over the past couple days. I've chosen something to share for this time as we enter into a time of sharing your own joys and concerns that I thought was especially moving. And so many things written were shared anonymously, so I don't know who the author of this is. But this is a poem about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. If she had lived 100 years, it would have been too few. In a world where women are expected to comply, she said, I dissent. In a world where love has been kept in a box with rules, she said, I dissent. In a world where borders are drawn tighter and walls are built higher, she said, I dissent. In a world where fiction is told as truth and facts are twisted into lies, she said, I dissent. And so on a night when it feels like the pendulum has swung off its fulcrum, like there is no place to make a U-turn, like darkness is winning, I will say loudly so as to convince myself, I dissent. For decades, she stared unafraid into the faces of misogyny, homophobia, xenophobia, and bigotry, daring them to blink. She wrote reams and spoke volumes and did push-ups while her detractors, I don't know, ate cheeseburgers or whatever. So because she did, I can. Because she did, I will. Tonight feels like the end of something, but it doesn't have to be. This is a moment that instead of being the death of hope, can be the birth of a renewed zeal. Giving up feels very easy, even warranted, but it also feels disrespectful to her memory. We can take this moment and turn it into a movement. We can, like the notorious RBG, dissent. We can, like her, dissent until the very breath leaves our bodies. Thank you, Honorable Justice Ginsburg. You fought harder and longer than you should have had to for us, and we are so grateful. Rest well. You've earned it. Oyez, oyez, oyez. Tonight we cry, but tomorrow we rise. I invite you now to take a moment to share your own joys and concerns in our chat room as we listen to Valerie Howitt on harp. Thank you to Valerie Howitt for that beautiful piece on harp. Now we invite you to join us in a moment of silence. It's only 1 minute, but it can be very significant in our lives. Silence allows us to recenter. It allows us to quiet our mind for just a moment. It allows us to concentrate not only on us and our lives, but on the things that have been shared in the chat room, on issues happening with your family, with your neighbors, with your friends, and of course in our community and in our world. So I invite you into this minute of silence, after which you'll hear a ding, and then we will play and sing Spirit of Life together. Let's have a minute of silence. Yes, please. That's all right. We can move on. This is one of the glitches that happens sometimes. At this time, I would like to remind you that we are continuing to collect your offerings and your pledges. You can do that by mailing them in here to the office using just regular mail. You can do that by having your bank send us a check on a regular basis, which is what I do. Or you can do that if you have a smartphone using the Venmo app. In any case, make sure that you make a note on your donation so that we know if it goes to your pledge, to the general fund, or to something special, perhaps our second helping offering or something like that. Thank you for continuing to give. We're actually doing well financially, and that doesn't mean you can stop. It means that you need to continue to do what you're doing. This is something that's essentially important for us during this time. There's a large number of congregations, including UU congregations, that are laying off staff, that are having to sell their buildings or in other types of really dire financial need because their folks aren't giving the way that you are. So I can't say thank you enough. You may remember that we're doing a series on UU history the past few weeks and coming up for the next several weeks, emphasizing key people and events that shaped Unitarianism and Universalism over the past 100 years. Part of the reason we're doing that is selfish on my part. I have to go before a group called the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, which is part of the Unitarian Universalist Association. The Ministerial Fellowship Committee, or MFC for short, they are the group that basically gives an okay, I like to call it the good housekeeping seal of approval, to people who want to become UU ministers. I went before this group last year, the first weekend in October, and was told that I wasn't ready, that because of my background and my years in Christian ministry, the fact that I was relatively new to Unitarian Universalism, they said, you're just not ready yet. Do these things and come back to us in a year. So they gave me a list of things to do, to study, classes to take, issues to resolve, and I've done all of those. And so I'm going back on Thursday, October 1st, 4:30 in the afternoon. Mark it on your calendars so you can lift up a joyful word for me, share an affirmation, set an intention, eat a chocolate chip cookie, drink a cup of coffee, whatever it is you do. I will take all of the positive energy I can get. I was frustrated, honestly, with my experience last year with the MFC and have been a bit on edge ever since then, with some anxiety thinking about having to go back again to become approved. I've met several UU ministers, many of whom I have a great deal of respect for, who have had to go back. You get a score on a scale from 1 to 5. If it's a 1, that means you're great, you're good to go. If it's a 2, that means we have one thing that we want you to do, like read a book or attend a class or something like that, and then you're good. If you receive a 3 or a 4, that means you have a lot of work to do and you need to come back. And if you receive a 5, basically that means, what are you even doing here? You're never going to be minister. And so I received a 3. And it was frustrating because I've been doing ministry for over 35 years. And I thought, how dare they tell me that I'm not ready to be a Unitarian Universalist minister? But I have learned a lot over the past year. And I had an interesting experience last night at dinner. Tess and I had supper with Reverend Kleber Van Zant and his wife Linda. He's the minister over at our Venice congregation. And Kleber's been on this journey with me. He's been walking through this and hear me talking about preparing for the MFC for the past year. And so last night we were talking about the preparation, and mostly the interview is an hour long. They asked me a lot of questions about myself, my background, what would you do in that scenario, in this scenario, but they also asked one or two questions about Unitarian Universalist history or theology. Out of a million things they could ask, they're going to ask me one or maybe two questions. So it's a lot of studying, it's a lot of cramming, and as I said, it's a lot of stress. He said, Dan, why are you doing this? And I chuckled and I said, Cleaver, that is actually literally the title of my sermon tomorrow. Why am I doing this? Why am I a UU minister? Why do I want to spend the rest of my career as a UU minister? Why the hell at age 57 am I putting myself through this stress yet again? Well, part of it is honestly, I might have delusions of grandeur. The idea that maybe I can make a difference, that I have something to say that people might want to listen to, that the world will be a better place in some way because I can influence in some small way a congregation and maybe a community. The fact is, as an adult, I think a lot about the idea of legacy. Legacy. What is it that we leave behind after we die? Ruth Bader Ginsburg clearly leaves an amazing legacy, and she would have had a significant role in our world even if she had never become a Supreme Court justice. The work she did for women's rights is unparalleled by lawyers in America. What is my legacy going to be? I mean, I have my children, and they are part of my legacy, there's no doubt. I'm incredibly proud of them, and I have a great relationship with my kids. But what is my career? What is my professional legacy? In my years as a university professor, I had a lot of great experience with students, many of whom I still have contact with. And I hear from one from time to time. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, I heard from a former student I had 15 years ago who's finishing a doctorate in Northern Ireland and said, thank you for impacting my life and helping me to love learning and to ask critical thinking questions. So I'm here as a Unitarian Universalist minister, continuing forward in this quest, because I believe that religion matters. I believe that spirituality matters. I believe that truth and the search for truth matters. And I believe that social justice matters. I love to learn. I love to sit down with people and hear about their journeys and their stories and their lives and see what I can glean from each of those. It's a big part of why I'm here, listening to other people's stories, not just people who are different flavors of Protestant Christian, not just Baptist or Nazarenes or Episcopalians, not even just Catholics on top of that, but people who come from Buddhist traditions, people who come from Eastern religions, people who come from Native American religions, people who are pagans and Wiccans. And I see nuggets of truth and really interesting spiritual challenges in all of those. Even my many conversations with atheists through the years help me understand the notion of God better, the idea of spirituality better. And yes, it's true. I do believe that I have something to say. I believe that part of the role of a minister is to have a prophetic voice, to challenge people's ideas, to encourage folks. And that is what gives me the audacity to think that I should even be a minister at all. That is part of the call of ministry. One of the questions that I was asked by MFC a year ago was, where do you get your authority for ministry? It's not a question I had prepared for. To me, the correct answer for that is my authority to be a minister comes from the universe. My sense that there's something greater out there that I need to answer to. I remember in high school taking one of those career assessment tests that your guidance counselor gives you. Maybe you had one of those as well. And it's lots of questions, and at that time they fed it through a computer, and then it kicked back like your top 5 careers that you should consider. My number 1 career was funeral director. Didn't really follow that path. But my number 2 career suggestion was priest or minister. And at that time, I wasn't going to church. I didn't grow up in a Christian family or a church-going family at all. So I kind of laughed that off. The third option was lawyer, which I also considered for a short time. You might ask, what is it that a funeral director, a minister, and a lawyer all have in common? I'll leave that for a lunchtime discussion for you to have. But the fact is that this idea of having a role as a spiritual leader, that seed was planted in my mind, I guess, even when I was in high school. I do have something to say. I do believe that I have a prophetic voice, not to any credit of my own, but to the credit of whatever it is or whoever it is that created me. Wherever the source of my personality came from, my gifts and my interests, that is what gets credit for my desire, for my interest, for my passion to do ministry. It is a really important creative outlet for me as well. I like the challenge of writing sermons. I like the challenge of coming up with ideas and working with the congregation to touch people's lives. The past 6 months has been a real test for my creativity. You might be surprised to learn that in seminary, we don't have a class on how to do ministry during a pandemic. We don't have classes on how to set up technology to do remote worship services. That was never part of the experience. Fortunately, I'm enough of a technology geek that I figured some things out and used a little bit of extension cord, a little bit of ingenuity, some trial and error to come up with the setup that we have today so that we can have a live service together. I'm also inspired in my work and ministry by you, by the people I work with who make me better, who make me laugh, who make me want to keep going in this work and in this role in ministry. It is sitting with you. It is being part of the service Sunday morning, the energy in this sanctuary that isn't here right now. But right now, it's also the sense that each of you are sitting at home, you're on vacation, you might be in a hotel room, you might be at a friend's house or family's, and that this connection to community, even though we are virtual on Zoom, is important to you. This community, this fellowship, UUFCC, is important to you. And I understand that. I feel it deeply. I honor that. And it's a privilege to be a part of that. But there are so many other lessons I've learned in 2020. Now, of course, when the year started, I knew that this was a presidential election year. I told you, I warned you in January that I would talk a lot about the election because it was so important to the future of this country, of our culture, and that as people of some type of faith, as Unitarian Universalists, we had a role to play in choosing our next president and making our voice known about the guy with the bad hair and the orange face who's occupying the White House. I knew that the election was going to be ugly. I knew that it was going to be divisive. And I knew that it was going to be vital to our future. And that's nothing special with me. Most of you knew that when 2020 started as well. So that was on my calendar. I knew that almost every Sunday during this year, I would talk about the presidential election. But what I didn't plan on when 2020 started was a pandemic. I didn't plan on widespread sickness and death due to this unprecedented COVID-19 that has spread around the world, and 200,000 deaths of people in the United States of America from COVID-19. And we call ourselves the most advanced country on earth. I didn't plan on the inability to travel, to see family and friends. Tess and I had trips planned to Boston. We were going to take our first ever trip to Hawaii in September. We had trips planned to see family, to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, graduations. We couldn't do any of that. I didn't plan to do ministry via Zoom, to sit with some of you who are mourning because of the loss of family members, because of family emergencies, and to do pastoral care on the phone or online or at a distance, to not be able to share hugs with any of you or handshakes. The most we can do when we're together is wave our elbows at each other. In fact, when we go to Publix or we go to Walmart and we're doing grocery shopping, we're out in public, we're all wearing masks, and often we don't even recognize each other. Some of us have hairlines that are easier to pick out, even with masks on, I suppose. I also didn't plan on the social upheaval that we've had over the past several months. So many deaths and arrests and problems with police brutality towards Blacks and minorities and marginalized people. I didn't plan on being a part of protests that were happening all over the country. Peaceful protests, protests that have turned ugly and violent and into more deaths. I didn't plan necessarily on being part of the Black Lives Matter movement here in Charlotte County. I didn't plan on climate disasters that we see, the dry, hot, windy weather in the West that have led to record fires, record numbers of square miles being burnt to the ground, record numbers of homes being lost and devastated because of these fires. I didn't plan on a record number of hurricanes during this season. As of yesterday, we were at Hurricane Beta, the second time in history that we've had so many named storms that we've had to go to the Greek alphabet. And it's only mid-September. What do we have in store for the next 2.5 months from tropical storms? I didn't plan on murder hornets. That was not on my to-do list. Fortunately, that's not an issue here in South Florida yet. We still have 3 months left in 2020, and we know that there will be more disasters and problems and challenges to come. We know that on November 3rd, we have an election, the most consequential election of our lifetime, maybe of the past 150 years. And I know we often say that during a presidential election, but it really does seem like, as Joe Biden has said, this election is about the heart and soul of America. Which way do we want to go? Do we want to continue to follow hate and division, or do we want to follow unity and empathy and grace? We're going to have a fight over the next few months over Ginsburg's replacement. The president has said he's planning to name and nominate a replacement in the next week. Mitch McConnell has said he's planning on bringing that person for a vote, if before the election, if at all possible, and if not, definitely after the election. We know the Democrats are going to fight that tooth and nail with every type of formal challenge they have, with protest. We are going to be asked to participate in protests and letter writing campaigns and any type of demonstration so that our senators in Florida somehow will hear our voice to say, stop this madness and wait. The social upheaval will continue. There's just no doubt. And there's nothing we can do to avoid that. But we can participate in it. And I encourage you to. You may not have the strength or the energy to hold a sign and to walk out in the hot South Florida sun for 3 hours on a Saturday morning. But you can make phone calls, you can send emails, you can write letters to our senators and to others. We don't know that that's going to make a difference. But if we don't do those things, they can't make a difference. If we could flood our senators' offices with emails and letters and postcards from millions of Floridians who say, stop this madness in the Senate. Don't vote to confirm a new justice yet. It is not the right time. It will be more divisive and more hurtful. If they get millions of those, they may stop and think about the sheer number, the sheer opposition. Neither of our senators are on the ballot this year, but they will be coming up, and we will have a long memory. So why do I do this? I enjoy it. I like this work, as crazy as that sounds. It is not an easy thing to prepare a worship service, to prepare a sermon for a congregation of people, some of whom are atheists, some of whom are pagan, some of whom are Catholic or Jewish or Muslim or come from any number of backgrounds, some of whom want a more intellectual approach to spirituality, some of whom want a more heart-based approach to spirituality, some of whom have a lot of education, some of whom have a little education. It is a challenge that I enjoy. to create messages and services and opportunities that touch as many of us as possible, knowing that I can never make everybody happy, possibly ever, but certainly not at the same time. I also do this to encourage you to grow, to become a better person, to learn more about the world in which you live, to learn more about spirituality, to learn more about what that means. To continue to learn is to be human. I also do this to inspire you to act, to make a difference in the world, to get out the vote, to speak up about Ginsburg's replacement, to do the work of social justice. In fact, just this morning, I learned about an Immokalee worker who was shot and killed, I believe it was Thursday night, by the police down near Naples in Immokalee. He had a shovel. Sounds like maybe he was drunk. He was trying to open the door of a house that he didn't live in. The occupants of that house called the police. The police came. He had a shovel in his hand and approached them, and they shot and killed him. The police murdered someone for being drunk and having a shovel. There's a better way to do police work. This is what we mean when we say defund the police. We don't mean necessarily get rid of the police, but let's find a better way. Getting drunk and carrying a shovel should not be a death sentence. I don't care who you are. And we have a justice system that allows a movie star to ask a judge to put her in a very specific jail so that she can serve out her sentence, which is already too short, in a cushy prison. We have a lot of work to do. I also do this because UUs are optimists at our very core. We believe in the inherent goodness of people, even sometimes in the lack of evidence of that goodness. That's part of our universalist background, believing that we all have inherent worth and dignity that we need to honor in some way. I also do this because I have a hope for a better tomorrow. As much as a mess as the year 2020 has been, I believe that 2021 can be the best year we've ever had, but not by just letting it happen, by being involved in doing something to make it so. Every single moment of our life, we're faced with decisions about what to say and how to act. And in those moments, we impact the people around us. And by being conscious and being aware of the impact we can have an even greater impact. I have hope for tomorrow. Something else that I saw on a Facebook meme recently, I want to share. Again, the author is anonymous, so I give credit to this anonymous person. This is not original with me. But I want to leave you with this thought at the close of this message. Why I do this. Don't give up on this year. Keep fighting for the good. Keep showing up. Keep loving. Keep giving back. Keep being kind. Keep being brave. Keep caring. Keep trying new things. Keep showing grace. Keep on. The world needs you to believe in the good. Amen and blessed be. Lori has our closing words.
Our closing words today are by Max Coots with some adaptations. Reverend Coots became minister of the Canton Universalist Church in New York in 1958, where he served for 34 more years until his retirement in 92. He died a few years back. He was a punster, a preacher, a wise counselor, and a church handyman. He was a community activist. He wrote 3 great books. If you're interested, let me know and I'll send you the titles. Also had a Doctor of Sacred Theology by Starr King's School for the Ministry and a few other educational attributes. It's called After. After the words, a quiet. After the songs, a silence. After the crowd, only the memory recalls the gathering. Peace and justice have need of you after the words, the music, and the gathering. Divine energy grant you the depth for dedication to justice. Divine energy grant you the will to be an apostle of peace. Amen.
Thank you, Lori. Just a couple things to share by way of life of the community, some things that are happening that I'd like for you to know about. I've mentioned this before, but I want you to continue to be aware that Zoom is changing security requirements. That is why when you log into this meeting, that you go into a waiting room. Over the next couple of weeks, we're pretty sure that that's going to happen with all of our gatherings. So if you're on a committee or you're part of the meditation group or anything like that, you're going to wind up in with either a link that will take you directly there, or you may wind up in a waiting room where the host will have to let you in. So just be aware of that change. It also gives us an opportunity to share our links with friends and to share them a bit more widely, either on Facebook or in the paper. And I believe, Mary Ellen, I understand that you found us today by the link and information that was in the Sun. So it sounds like that strategy is working, and I'm very excited about that. Today, in a few moments, when we end the service, we go to social hour. We're going to be in breakout rooms, so give us just a minute, and I think Lori is coming back to give us instructions for that, so just hold tight as we go into that after the benediction. Let's extinguish the chalice together. And now we extinguish this chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. And now let's sing together, Go Now in Peace.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you
everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Go Now in Peace that's by Leticia Olivia Johnson Murillo, who was with the Michael Servetus Unitarian Society in Fridley, Minnesota. And when I emailed her this week to ask for permission to use that, she was super excited. She'd only had 6 other views on YouTube when I found this. So she was really honored that I came across it on YouTube and wanted to share it today. I just thought it's absolutely beautiful. Thank you all for being here. Each week I encourage you to continue to be a blessing. Be a blessing to yourself, cut yourself a break, give yourself some grace. This is a difficult time. Be a blessing to the people you live with. They need it, they deserve it. You need it together. And continue to be a blessing to everyone you meet. The frontline workers in the grocery stores and in the drugstores and in the other places you go, their lives and their family and their health are on the line for minimum wage as they're trying to help us during this time as well. So be a blessing to everyone you meet, and thank you for being here. And now we'll enter into our social hour. Lori will spotlight you, I guess, and we can learn instructions on what this is going to look like.
Okay, in response to requests from several of you, today we're going to be meeting in small groups for the social hour.